So it feels like they're still quite new on the scene. And I say that because we probably haven't had as much exposure in Auckland as we really need to from this brewery. So I'm talking with Dan Bregman of New, which is based in Dunedin there. And man, you guys have come on with a hiss and a roar. It's pretty amazing, Dan.
Yeah, look, it's well, we love what we do, and I guess normal and the road that everyone else has walked. I mean, to a certain extent, yes, of course, we still do it. We still make beer, and we still make IPAs, and we still make sours. But whether it makes it easy for us or not, we sometimes tend to try and push the envelope and do things a little differently, and especially when it comes to branding and styles and that sort of stuff. But you know, it's lots of challenges. You know, you're at the bottom of the South Island. And
the first time I found out about New, I was, you know, we just opened up our first branch at Northcote, and it was really tough, you know, that first sort of few months to, you know, approach brewers and breweries and sort of, you know, without any credibility and sort of hope for the best, you know, and say, oh, can you send us some beers, please? And when I did a bit of research about you guys, it was so mysterious. It had this, you know, here's the Good Luck Cat beer, which is sort of synonymous with your brand. And I thought, holy cow, what's going on here? It was, you know, this fermented beverages division and, you know, the New corporation. And it was like, holy smokes, you know, this is super interesting. And so I was really thrilled to be able to finally get a hold of you guys and sort of talk and first of all, find out that you're reasonably normal chaps. Yep. You're a great local and independent New Zealand brewery. And along with your founder, Ian McKinley, yourself, Dan, and you know, good old Duncan down there, who I think is part of the family, and crazy old Brendan. Holy cow, man. You guys have knocked it out of the park. And people compare you to Garage Project, but I don't think that's fair.
No, and I think we would, I mean, look, we're good buddies with the Garage Project crew, and we look, I mean, yes, you can draw similarities, but you can draw that across all breweries and all brands. I think we do try and be, we're our own thing. It's really refreshing to hear your take on how you experience the brand, because that's exactly what the idea was. We wanted to play, we wanted to have some fun. You know, there's a lot of, you know, the Asian luck cats and wacky designs and kind of the whole idea of having a fermented beverage division was, I mean, you know, what's the movie which I always I'm gonna fail myself on this one.
That's
Harrison
right,
Ford. Anyway, the idea of this evil mega corporation that's got no personality. They're just, you know, everybody is just a citizen and this kind of thing. It's like we were kind of playing on that, and a little bit of pop sci-fi, you know, 80s influence, throw in there a little bit of Asian iconography, and again, just having a bit of fun. And I mean, don't get me wrong, I get stopped in Queenstown by the Asian tourists, because all the iconography on the van, they think that I sell luck cats and those types of things, which, hey, it's great fun. But I think what really attracted me to the brand and the idea with it was it's a story. And there's a little bit more than just what's at face value. You actually have to kind of dive into the brand, and you actually have to, you know, there's questions where I get asked routinely, you know, oh, are we that Chinese brewery in Dunedin? And which some may argue is not a good thing. I challenge that by going, it's awesome, because I get to have conversations with people that I otherwise might not have had if I was just, and that's not at all saying that, you know, other brands that don't operate like us, you know, are not awesome in their own rights and all that sort of stuff. But I get to have some conversations that I otherwise wouldn't have. People get to find out who we are, having thought they had an idea. I mean, we routinely in Dunedin get, oh, most of your products exported over to China, isn't it? And I'm going, no, I talked with someone who was going to send some stuff to Taiwan, but that never happened. So no, we're just New Zealand. That's all.
Look, I think it's just a great approach, and you know, as our market, you know, I say our industry, I'm just a middleman in it, but it's been great to see it sort of develop, and you know, it's such a competitive slice that all our brewers have to work in within, and you know, our job is to build more taps to try and relieve some of that pressure, but you definitely have to have a little something to you know, to sort of stand out, I guess, or sort of cut your niche in that part. You guys seem to have done that really well.
Yep, and look, we've learned some lessons, man, along the way. It's kind of, I think it would be fair to say that from the start, niche was probably all we did. You know, it's smoked eel stouts, lots of really, really aggressive sours, you know, all of this sort of stuff, which is awesome. But we've also had to learn that, you know, you work with your customers, and you work with the sites that sell beer, and just as much as you need the interesting and the diverse, you also need the tried and true, and you need, I mean, I think hazies seem to sell quite well. I don't know why, you know, news to me. But yeah, so it's been an interesting journey of kind of, we probably went the opposite way to some others, is we started with smoked eel stouts and you know, lots of rye beers and all these very sort of interesting ones, and have had to add in the, I say mainstream with a grain of salt, I don't mean mainstream, but within our craft industry, the more mainstream styles, you know, so, but all for love and fun.
And mate, I think it's super important. We can't, you know, our job is to introduce mainstream beer drinkers to something a little more, you know, and you've got to have those transitional or gateway beers to bring people across, you know. You can't go from, you know, a mainstream Pilsner right on to perhaps a Yukon, you know. It's just too big a jump, and you've got to be really gentle, and you've really got to caretake these people in their mouth bits, I guess, to sort of expose them gently to sort of what's coming through. But you're Brendan Branscove, who's your brewer, and I'm kind of glad we're not talking.
I do need to caveat that. Brendan has moved on from New.
Oh, mate.
Yeah, but he was, Brendan was our founding brewer from when we started. We've now got Andrew Duke, who's working here, you know, sort of ex-Australian breweries, Gage Road. I forget the one in Tasmania. I'm
so sorry, mate. I shouldn't be that far behind.
No, hey, that thing called COVID happened, and we all kind of went into this tailspin of what are we doing and how are we doing it, and if I heard the word pivot again, I think I might go mad. But hey, pivoting is what we did, you know. I think I've got hip problems because I've been pivoting too much.
It's
but yeah,
you know, he was a very eccentric character, and I think that reflected some of the beers that you started off with. I remember being down there for what I believe is the greatest beer festival in the country, the Dunedin Beer Festival at Forsyth Bar, and you know, it was a real pleasure. You guys had you were almost about to open the beer garden, I think, which had been a huge labour of love. You know, the brewery looks amazing. It's in a historic building in Dunedin there. But Brendan sort of pulled me aside. I don't want to say he's shady, but he was kind of, you know, he's an eccentric character. And he pulled me aside, Jace, try this, you know. So he poured me a sample of the stuff. It was a fried shallot ale. It's like, what the hell are you doing, you goddamn fruitcake? This is delicious. It was like it was like drinking ramen juice. It was just so tasty.
No, absolutely. And I think that's where we kind of enjoy, you know, with the tap room. I've just worked out that apparently we have this digital display screen, and it looks awesome, but as I'll show you, it doesn't quite pick up. It looks like it's not turned on. Anyway, that's, you know, it's sort of been a huge part of what we try, you know, what we are able to do and what we like to do is mess with things, you know. It's fried shallot beer, kimchi beers, you know. One of our tradespeople who was coming into when we were doing the garden bar in that area, he came in and said, "Oh, we've got a whole lot of quinces at home. We've got like 10 kgs of quince. Do you want some? Okay, let's do a quince saison." You know, and it's just, I mean, I'm not saying that, again, we're not doing anything that anyone else isn't doing, but again, can we push our own boundaries and our own comfort zones and see, you know, merge flavors together? It's certainly we've got a food offering called Yum Cat that we're kind of playing with. And a big part of that is when we talk about discussions of what food we're doing and what beer we're doing, there's so much crossover because, you know, the chef in the kitchen will be going, oh, hey, look, we've got this koji paste we want to work on and do something with. And then it's kind of going, well, why don't we put that into a beer too? Let's put koji paste into a beer and see what happens. Yet to find out. But yeah.
Well, that's the magic, mate. So it's all ahead for Andrew. Andrew Duke, who's you've mentioned is taking over as head brewer there. You guys have quite a unique point of difference in the brewery. You guys have a mash press, and that allows you to get the maximum benefit out of the mash, right?
So yes, so it's called a HEBS kit. It's from IDD, and it's a high efficiency brewing system. So the way it works, what you can see here is essentially a whole bunch of bladders. And the idea is a traditional brew house would have your lauter tun, and then you have, your mash, a lauter mash tun, and then you go through to kettle and on through the process. We skip out the mash. We have a mash tun where we mash in, but what we do, it doesn't have the lauter bit at the bottom, the false floor. We pump directly from I'll try and get it right. We pump directly from our mash tun into the mash press. So it means what we can do is we can actually mill grain finer, which means we can elicit more sugars and more from less grain. And what that mash tun does when we pump into it, it's then bladderized and filled with water, so it can squeeze out everything in there. So it allows us, as I say, to elicit more sugars from less grain, but also it allows us to work with a lot of different grains. So rye, lots of wheat. Essentially, we could brew rice beers. The grains that would otherwise get very gelatinous and sort of and not be able to be handled by a traditional lauter tun, we can work with them. So look, I guess again, it's amazing, and what we can do with it is incredible, but we've had to learn how to use it. We don't get to just go off of what everyone else does, because no one else in New Zealand has a mash tun. So it's kind of, we can't just call someone up and go, hey bro, I've got this issue and this is happening. What do you do with that? We kind of have to message someone in America who replies to us overnight, and then we kind of work it out. But hey, it's been an incredible piece of kit for us. And as we sort of hack it and learn how to use it, we're starting to find some nuances. Admittedly, we've had to learn that there are some differences when we go from our 100-litre test kit up to a full brew. There can be some differences. So but sometimes those differences end up being a real treat. You didn't expect a certain thing to have happened, and then all of a sudden you go, well, I didn't expect that to happen, but that was awesome.
I'm speaking with Dan Bregman of New Corporation out of Dunedin, and I'm really happy to be talking to you, mate. And I want to thank you very much for being our Brew Buddy of the Month at the Beer Spot in Morningside, which opened in last November. So buddy, just to give you a brief fill-in on what's happening with us, we're about to open the 5th branch in Whangaplaua on Auckland's Hibiscus Coast towards the end of this month. And that'll be 5. We had a dream of 5 branches in 5 years and 200 taps in 2020. So we're really happy to hit that mark.
I can remember when you told me that at the Beer Fest, when you came down, and I think in what you told me, you're only about a month off. And we didn't factor in COVID. So I say go you.
Thanks, bro. We've managed to, we would have knocked out the 5 branches in 4.5 years. So we're super thrilled. But to be honest, buddy, it hasn't come without, it's toll. It's like, holy shit. And you guys as well, historic building in Dunedin. What were you thinking?
Look, short answer to that one is, let's rewind the tape. There might be questions as to whether you keep the building, because but look, we do stand by it. It's an 1860s. Essentially, it was a horse-drawn tram stables, and fantastic juxtaposition of both historic. It is a part of the historic places, you know, sort of building. We've won awards for what we've done with the space. But I love the juxtaposition of modern, new, sort of future meets Dunedin historic building. You know, I think that, and it does speak to a little bit of kind of what we love, I guess, almost the DNA of us and our beer is, cool, let's take a classic idea of a beer and, dare I say it, let's muck with it and see what we can do, you know, add in a mash filter and let's flip the script and see what happens.
It also fits in with your founder's sort of penchant for science fiction, I guess. It's a little bit sort of Blade Runner-ish, isn't it? Sort of
that's the movie. Damn it. That was it. That was what I was trying to get. The Tyrrell Corporation, and I of course, when it comes to being in an interview and supposed to saying it, I forget everything. But exactly, and that's you know, so Ian, look, he's absolute. Everything is the brainchild of him, you know, and for him, he'd lived up in Hong Kong for sort of around about 10 years, working in lighting design, lighting installation. So lots of the big, you know, the big high-rise, multi-level nightclubs and hotels and these types of things. He would do all the lighting installations, big LED, whole sides of buildings, you know, all of that orchestrated. Then moved into a lot of, I remember him telling me a story about Heineken coming out with, I don't know if you remember the metal can, sorry, yes. Metal bottle.
Yes.
And him working in some bar with UV lights that were able, you know, that kind of worked with the cans. So when you're having your little disco, all of a sudden your can looks like it's kind of discoing too, you know, just things like this. And so again, come back to new, and that stuff is consistent through everything. There's all sorts of lighting that we have. Our toilets, you know, I mean, it's a weird thing to tell people, but one of the first things I do when I take people to the brewery is go, bro, you need to check the toilets out. People go, what? What do you mean? I go, no, seriously, just do it. And everyone comes back like, oh, okay, I get what you mean. You get a little micro parties in the toilet, you know? But that sort of stuff, again, it comes through with this sort of pop sci-fi, slightly Asian, a little bit 80s, you know, and as I mentioned before, it doesn't come without its challenges in getting your quintessential classic Kiwi bloke. Sometimes it's a little bit confusing for them and they don't really know how to deal with it. But, you know, I think some of my closest friends, when I first met them, they were weirdos and I didn't know who the heck they were and I was a little confused by them, and now they're my nearest and dearest. So maybe we're going to be that. We might be a little sort of strange on the outside until you get to know us, and then you realize, oh, no, they're actually all good.
Well, you're a great bunch of fellas, and I think you're definitely complementary. You know, the skills amongst the team are definitely complementary, and you know that comes across when you see you in groups of 2 or 3, 4 of you. You know, yep. There's just such a good, positive vibe, and it's always a pleasure. So just tell us.
Only half of us have beards.
50% hit rate. That's good.
Totally.
Buddy, tell us where the brewery and the beer garden is, along with your food truck. How do people find that? Where is it exactly in Dunedin?
Right, yeah, so we're at 218 Crawford Street in Dunedin. Essentially, we're bang smack between the centre of town and the kind of, I guess you call it the South Dunedin, sort of Andersons Bay area. A little walk from, wow. See, this is the interesting thing about Dunedin versus the rest of sort of big cities is in Dunedinites might say, oh, it's bloody miles from town. But go anywhere else in the city and it's literally like a 5-minute walk from the city and you're here, you know. But so we're the brewery proper, which is what I'm sitting in. Then we have a garden bar which goes between us and what's behind us, which is, anyone who knows Dunedin, there was the old Southern Hotel or Southern Pub. We've taken over that space and we've actually got our packaging hall and we call it the barcade. We've got a little arcade with all sorts of 80s video games and that sort of stuff in it. And then above that, we've got 2 floors of soon to be completed accommodation. So it's
awesome.
some very again, in keeping with our brand and our style. They're going to be pretty wild and wacky. Lots of angles and space age design and lots of neons and this sort of stuff. But essentially 2 apartments with 2 bedrooms and spas and taps in the room and all that kind
Well,
of
mate,
stuff.
I'm booking now for Dunedin Beer Fest this year. I hope it's still on.
It is. It is. I've been given word it might be end of November, early December, something like that.
Hey, I just want to touch on that festival for a bit, because we're pretty spoiled for choice now. We see new festivals coming on. There's Gisborne, Queenstown, and Hamilton did one just before lockdown and stuff, which is really well attended. So we are seeing like people coming out to these events and sort of enjoying that new beer experience. And I think that's something that we've got to remember, is that it's still so new to a lot of people. But
Absolutely.
The Dunedin Beer Festival in particular, in the Forsyth Bar Stadium, it was just so beautiful to go there. There were heaps of exhibitors. There was plenty of room to walk around. And I was really thrilled to hear that last year it extended to 2 days.
Yep. No, look, it's, I mean, of course, we're biased. It's Dunedin. We're Dunedin. So by virtue, we should love it and it's our favorite. But look, as someone who does sales, I go to a lot of festivals and you go to a lot of places. I love the Dunedin Craft Beer Fest. It's in our covered Forsyth Bar Stadium. So, cue cheesy indoor-outdoor field quote, but you really do get it. You get the ability of it's not weather dependent. It's light. There's lots of space. We're on the actual paddock. It's a beautiful mix of food and beverage. And I guess it's just that. Look, it's just a fun, easy festival for everyone to kind of get to. It never feels too cramped. It never feels sort of overwhelming. I know as exhibitors going there, it's a breeze to work in. That's not to say that any other festivals aren't. It's just we do find it. It's a super well-run, organised. Jason Schrouder and Tim Couch and the guys who organise it, just hats off absolutely to them. They run a fantastic venue. And now, yes, the reality was, so last year it moved to 2 days, but the year before, we're talking 5-10 minutes and the whole thing's sold out. And I think it really is that stuff of, I guess, Dunedin is that spot where, we just had it with the COVID stuff, the southern area is just grouped into this one massive block. But we've actually got a lot. There's Central Otago, there's Invercargill, you've got Christchurch, I say just up the road. It is a 4.5, 5 hour drive, but still, it's up the road. So, and I think that also the interesting thing about the Dunedin Beer Fest is it occupies traditionally, obviously this year might be a little bit different, but it occupies a time of year that there isn't, I'd argue, there isn't heaps of beer fests around November, which I think is kind of an exciting, and it does tend to garner a different or a very mixed audience. You've got people doing early Christmas parties going to that. You've got people doing wind-ups, so we love it. And of course, we get to have fun at the brewery and kind of put on mini beer fests and do events. And, last year I booked a bus, but of course what happened was the bus broke down when they were trying to be ferrying everyone back here. Broke a couple of clutches.
My God, you had to walk a whole 10 minutes back to the brewery. How terrible.
Yep.
Okay. So Dan, we've got 6 new beers on at Morningside at the moment. I'll just run through them quickly. So Promise Pilsner, Super Rye, Yukon, the APA, One Must Fall, an IPA, Citra and Mosaic hops, and you've got a sour lemon chan on as well. But the sleeper, and the one I want to talk about with you about first, is Sun. So a brown ale, mate, that's pretty brave.
Yeah, look, key learnings, if you want to sell a beer real easy, don't mention rye or brown. It's really tricky. People just kind of go, no, I don't know about that. But Sun is one of my faves. And there's actually a really nice little backstory, which I'll just quickly throw in. Sun was actually a beer that we came up with Natural History New Zealand. And it's actually to support the sun bears. And there's a sun bear outreach program, so up in Borneo. And so we give proceeds from every pint sold, from every keg sold, from every can sold, and our t-shirts. We donate to the sun bear outreach program. And so the DNA of how we made sun beer was actually going, how do we turn a sun beer into a beer? So it's brown. It's got to have some kind of tropical feeling because it's from Borneo. And so that's where we went, right, okay, let's do a tropical brown ale. tropical speaking to essentially the hops, to be fair. But it's been an interesting and a fun kind of beer to sell, because it's kind of got a foot, you know, this is what I love about brown ales. It's got a foot in your dark beer kind of roasty profile that goes on, but it's not a dark beer. And that's what kind of, like, I find it it's one of my go-to. I have two go-to lawn mowing beers, and that's Sun and Glory, which is our 2.4% cherry Berliner, and Sun Sun. You know, depending on whether I'm going to be operating machinery after having Sun Sun, you know. But no, Sun Sun is definitely a sleeper, and it's one that we've routinely had bars that would take a punt on it. They'll take a 30 litre, and most of the time that's the one they end up reordering. Hang on, I've got technical. Here we go. Turns out that if I've got to find where you are. You've disappeared from me.
Oh, as long as you can hear me, mate, that's the most important thing, because no one wants to look at this, buddy.
Oh, I disagree.
Hey, the other reason it's a sleeper is, you know, what you alluded to briefly is it rounds out at about 6%, but it's so well balanced, and you know, you've got that great hot malt balance, so it can be a little bit tricky. I kind of like to maybe finish my night on it after a few super ryes, and super rye, I think the rye style beers are misunderstood. I think a little bit. They're a little bit drier, perhaps, but you sort of get that from the rye. You get sort of a citrusy, orangey sort of a note.
Absolutely.
And probably more so because of the grain press you have.
Yep. No, absolutely. And I mean, that's, again, it's something that there's a lot of education that has to go with a lot of these ones, you know. As exactly you say, the rye beer, you get a lot more of that kind of, shall I say, burnt golden syrup, treacle, kind of molassesy kind of flavors coming through. A lot of that orange peel sort of comes out with them. And again, you mentioned rye, and this is the challenge that we've faced as selling super rye, is the mash press allows us to brew a rye beer that perhaps traditionally, when you brew with rye, it would often tend to be a little bit darker and a little bit more sort of full on. Whereas we're able to brew quite a balanced, quite a light pale ale out of, you know, with a plus 50%, you know, rye in the grain bill. So it's been a bit about educating. My usual tagline when I roll into a place and I'm trying to sell super rye is, do you have people who like Spates? And they go, yeah. And I go, cool. Well, this beer would probably be more of our portfolio. That's going to be the one that's probably a little bit more consistent with what they might enjoy, you know?
Yeah, that's nice, mate. The other, you know, we have some staff members at the Beer Spot who are huge sour fans, and I just want to touch a little bit on Synaptic Voyage. So I'm filming here at Huapai, and Jack and Liam and Calvin are sour beer fanatics. You know, they just absolutely love it. So they were, you know, they would preach absolutely about Synaptic Voyage when it's on. But you've dialed it down a little bit, I think, recently.
Yep, we've I mean, again, I guess speaking to what we do and how we do it, I know this can probably be a contentious statement to make, and don't hate me, but we sometimes like to take some of the beers on a journey. Now, that's not to say that they change so dramatically that they're a different beer, but ingredients, styles, way you're brewing, those sorts of things, you know, taking them, they go through iterations. And Synaptic Voyage was certainly one that we've worked on, you know, depending on the type of lacto we had available, depending on, you know, and also just trialing different versions, you know, there was probably mid last year, the iteration was quite cloudy and it was real puckatastic. You know, it was gnarly. It was a gnarly sour. And we've sort of worked on it. We wanted it to come back and be a little bit more on the refreshing and bright than on the sort of real kind of sour. And we think we've got it to a place where we really enjoy where it is. And it's striking that nice balance between an accessible sour but also I can still remember, I can't remember which beer, oh, it was the Christchurch Beer Fest, the Great Kiwi. And I can remember really taking note. I would have only been on board for a few months. And I remember really taking note because all of the brewers were coming over to our tent having that sour. And that was what kind of, you know, I mean, in all honesty, my experience with sours was Michael O'Brien and Leanne Scotty from Craftwork. I had a cafe in Oamaru, and I can still remember, like, absolutely just kind of falling in love, but also going, dude, why are you brewing beers that smell like old socks? It's out of it, you know, like, and I had to get walked through the whole process of what they were, and then kind of realizing, okay, no, this is, having been, you know, sort of worked in kitchens and food and that sort of stuff, I kind of appreciated what was going on. And, but yes, our sour program is certainly something that we have worked on and have tried to develop. And also, look, as much as I say we deviate, I guess, a bit to a certain extent from some batches, we do still have a plan of what that beer is supposed to be. And, you know, when you're adding, so Synaptic Voyage is a Thai lime and lemongrass sour ale. So trying to strike that nice balance where we can get consistency of flavor both in the initial brewing and the souring process, but then also with the addition of, you know, the Thai lime and the lemongrass. You know, much like for us, pepper, we have a chili pilsner, and admittedly, depending on whether we were getting ripe or not so ripe chilies, dictated as to whether it burnt or not. You know, and you kind of want that to be consistent. So,
sure. Look, Dan, I'm just aware that we've sort of come to the end of our half an hour, mate. So I really want to thank you very much for joining us. It's busy out there at the moment with you know, the lifting, and I hope that next week is good news for you guys. You're going to have folks standing around admiring that incredible brewery behind you.
Yep.
So, mate, I just want to wish the team very well. I want to thank you again very much for being our Brew Buddy of the Month at Morningside. I hope we get to see Duncan or one of you boys come up during the month and share a few beers with us. I'd love to sink a few promised pilsners with you, mate. That is an outstanding brew.
Yep. No, thank you. And look, I mean, we just, I think for us, we are not unaware of the challenges that COVID has faced for so many of the friends and family within our industry, you know, and the wider industry. But, you know, we wish everyone the best. And I think for us, it's, you know, a lot of the conversations I'm having with other brewers or other breweries and sites is just trying to all work together to help each other out. Because look, I think this, you know, if we can push the support local, we've got so many fantastic breweries in New Zealand and so many fantastic sites. And it's just, we feel super lucky to be able to be involved in what you guys do and the wider New Zealand sort of scene. So it's, as much as we're a business and we're doing this for obvious reasons, there's also, we love being involved with it, you know, and it's an absolute honor to be able to call people like yourselves the Beer Spot, you know, our wider community friends.
Thank you, Matt. I really appreciate that. And, you know, I think if there's any industry that can sort of pull it together and support each other, it's got to be our one, mate. It's just been such a pleasure for me to be involved with it for the past few years as well. So again, mate, thank you so much. And please pass on my regards to the team, mate.
Yep, will do. Stay safe, and we'll see you in a few weeks.
Thanks, mate.